Mhm.
So I want to go back to Numbers 31. I
Right.
understand that you were saying that maybe this was something that Moses was coming up with, or this is exaggerated language.
Mhm.
I want to focus on the part that refers to the female children, the women children, as
Mhm.
different translations would put
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And Moses saying, "Keep these women children to yourselves." What were they keeping them for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the presumption is that they could be kept for marriages, as we read in Deuteronomy 21, that there are certain protocols to follow, that you couldn't just, war rape was prohibited. That to engage in, in some sort of a, and again, I go into detail on this in my book, Is God a Vindictive Bully, where I talk about, that how, in various ways, war rape was not permitted, and I give various scenarios, related to this. But let me just cut to the chase and say that there is the permissibility of intermarriage after battle. So we see this, and again, there's a 30-day waiting period before there could be a taking of a young virgin to be wedded to someone. So it wasn't as though this was being permitted. Some people say, "Oh, it was to rape them." Well, when you look at what the legislation is in Deuteronomy 21, there is a very humane approach to this, where the person who is taken from her own home, she has a 30 days for grieving, kind of for saying goodbye, taking off her old clothing, putting on clothes of mourning and so forth, clipping her nails, cutting her hair. This is a time of kind of saying goodbye to an old way of life, and to coming into a new way of life. And this is actually has redemptive elements of, rather than, in other nations, these would be taken as uh, you know prostitutes in the temples of the deities of the victorious armies. They would just simply be put into prostitution, or they would have been outrightly killed. So you do have this, a number of redemptive elements that are involved here in how the Israelites handled prisoner of war women coming into the nation of Israel. So it wasn't as though there could just be any sort of a sexual using of women on the battlefield, or thereafter. There's a marriage ceremony that took place before any sexual activity was permissible.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned there Deuteronomy 21, because that was going to be a question that I was going to ask in follow up with this. Because,
Mhm.
yeah, it doesn't appear that you could just automatically lay hold of them and just do whatever. You have to have, like you said, that time period where you give
Right.
them to mourn. But I don't get any indication from the text that this is consensual or has to be consensual.
Well, I mean, there are elements of potential asymmetry here, where obviously this is I mean, there is a if a person decides that he isn't going to go through with it, then he is not to humiliate her and so forth. So there is that kind of regard for that person's humanity. But this is, really, this is, the options are not very many in the ancient Near East. Prostitution, vulnerability to being abused by any predators that come in the aftermath, kind of like hyenas do, just to take advantage of the vulnerable, those who've been left behind, those who have no resources of themselves, at least to be incorporated into the land of Israel, means that there is some stability, that there is some ability to come into this setting where you have a new opportunity, where dishonor, shame have been removed, and that you could live as someone in the, as a fellow Israelite, and the laws were to, as Leviticus 24 talks about, that the laws for the alien and for the native were to be the same. So yes, there is some kind of asymmetry here, but in some ways, it's the best that you can do given the the horrible scenario of war and its aftermath. So again, we're not talking about some sort of idealized circumstance here and legislation that is just perfect. We're dealing with hardened human hearts, terrible conditions, and I think trying to find something redemptive in the midst of those sorts of horrifying scenarios.
I also want to ask about Exodus 21:7-11, that talks about the case of a man selling his daughter into servitude or slavery.
Yeah.
Is it the case that he can sell his daughter against her will, it would appear, and that then the master can do whatever he wants with her? At that point, um, couldn't he use her not just for labor, but for maybe other things?
Well, I mean, it's possible, although those things were prohibited by Israelite law. Just because you're someone, of course, a person can sell himself into servitude, as we read at the end of Deuteronomy, at the end of Leviticus 25, where someone is so poor that he sells himself, even to potentially to a Gentile who is in Israel, who is a person of means. It's not ideal, but this is kind of a way of helping your own family when you don't have the means to support them, to find a place where they can find food, clothing, shelter, and have the debt paid off as a result of working during this period of time. That this is something that is actually very very helpful and humanizing. So this is again the mention of the taking advantage of someone who is a servant. This is something that is just a departure from the spirit of the law.
Is it prohibited in any actual laws, or you were just saying just the spirit of the law?
Well, it's the spirit of the law, and of course the picture of the of the female slave, slave, servant, and so forth. And I go into detail on this in my book, Is God a Moral Monster, in which I talk about that she is someone who is is she designated, is this person who is being given to her to there's the possibility of marrying someone. Okay, again, we're not talking about taking advantage of someone sexually. There has to be a ceremony and so forth. So there is this possibility that someone is being, maybe a man who's a widower, who can take on someone who is, who has been perhaps a servant with, a servant there, or can be married perhaps to his, to the son of that, that person. So we're not told, all of the details here. But this person, if she comes in as a servant and can, potentially marry, we do see this going on, for example, in an Egyptian servant in First Chronicles 2, where we have an Egyptian servant who ends up, marrying into the family. So you have Yarha, who Yarha, who marries Attai. Or actually, Yarha marries this Egyptian servant. They have a daughter, Attai, and so it's possible to have this kind of intermarriage within this kind of servant sort of a circle. So those sorts of things are possible. But I would just say just take a look at the what I say in the in covering this in my book, Is God a Moral Monster? And again, this the question of if there is a So anyway, I try to go into this, and if you want to look into even more detail on this, there's a terrific book called The Flame of Yahweh by Richard Davidson, Old Testament scholar, who goes into all of, it's a very thick book, goes into the topic of sexuality and so forth in, in the Old Testament, in every facet, dealing with polygamy, dealing with a servant girl, like in this passage, and so forth, and what the requirements are. So anyway, just a little bit of backdrop there.
But in this case, similarly to Numbers 31, it doesn't necessarily require consent on part of the girl, correct?
Well, I mean, there is the if a person is there, the assumption is if you're going to have sexual relations, you cannot, it has to be within a marriage context. So, for example, if there's a servant, we read elsewhere, someone who is a servant girl and someone who, and she is engaged to be married, and someone violates her, then there's a penalty there's a penalty against that. So it's not just you can do whatever you would like to someone just because that person's a servant. So, and again, we see servants who are married, not simply, taken advantage of.
Yeah, but you can marry them without their consent, and therefore, then
I mean, there is usually when a father is involved, there is a quote, bride, a gift that goes along with that. And so this is again, you could kind of see this where there is someone who has perhaps seduced a young girl. We see this in, Exodus 22 and Deuteronomy 22, where we have mentions of seduction. Again, it's not rape. That's a misrepresentation, but there's the possibility of a seducer with a girl who is underage to pay a certain amount, but the girl has to concede, or has to agree to marry him. And again, this is in consultation with her father. So it's not as though everything is taken out of the father's hands. There are these sorts of transactions, and we look at, as we compare laws, we can see that there are some options, but also certain freedoms that come. That this is not a done deal. So these things would be done in arrangement with the father, who is kind of the point person of the home, and simply isn't going to let his daughter go to anyone to do whatever he wants with her.
Yeah, and I know we're pressed for time here, coming up the clock at 2 hours. So let me maybe just wrap it up with one more follow-up question. So from what I can tell, the women, children, and Numbers 31, just kind of looking at the term here, it looks like these are girls who are young enough that they don't know the difference between right and wrong, and they can't walk long distances. At least that's how the term seems to be used. So this seems to be really, really, really young. Now, yes, the Israelites are marrying them, right? They're not engaging in these acts outside of marriage, but
right.
They're, from what it appears, in an asymmetrical way, as you noted there, marrying the girls without their consent.
Yeah,
And
I mean, again,
young.
yeah, and I should say too that it's not that all girls are of marriageable age either, so they would just be assimilated into the land of Israel. So, but those who are of marriageable age, then that would be a different scenario. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, because the girls that are being described as they can keep for themselves, they appear to be really, really young. Am I misreading that?
I mean, we're not told, but this is in terms of there is this presumption that they can be taken. Again, the kind of the standard understanding would be that they would be could be assimilated in. We see kind of hints of this in even the chapter, kind of hinted at perhaps in Deuteronomy chapter 20. Where the women and children are spared, but what do you do with those who are prisoners of war? They could be assimilated into the people of Israel, and that's how that's what typically happened in the aftermath of war, unless, say, women or girls were put into prostitution in temples. They could be assimilated into the land, the people of Israel. And again, the whole marriage thing would just, if marriage is not appropriate, then it wouldn't apply. But the assimilation of those who would otherwise be left vulnerable, that these could be taken in. and placed within Israelite homes. But that's kind of a standard operational procedure in Israel. So anyway, that's where I would land on that.
Well, I have a lot of other questions, but I know we're out of time. I want to give you an opportunity to put in a plug for your work. We've been talking about some of your books. Maybe tell the audience, are you working on any new books? And is there a website that they can go to find out more about your material?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, a few things. One is, well, of course, come study with us at Palm Beach Atlantic University in our MA Philosophy of Religion program. We've also got an an undergrad program in apologetics, and so we certainly would encourage you to come. We've got a hybrid program, but also it's better if it's on the ground and you're a residential student for our MA Philosophy of Religion program. It's a wonderful community. But yeah, if you're interested in looking at various books, you can check out my website. Also, Amazon is a place where you can look at things that I've already published. I do have several books that I'm working on. One is a book on leadership coming out next month. Or at least, it'll be somewhat available through Amazon and so forth. But it's on a book on leadership that I co-authored with two other persons, and it emphasizes the importance of character as the kind of the grounding for leadership. And then two views on hell that I'm co-editing with Chris Date, and it's a book that looks from different disciplines at two sides of the issue: hell as eternal conscious punishment, or hell as annihilation, the conditional immortality view. So that's coming out in December. I'm doing I've done a reworking of the co-authored book that I did with Robertson McQuilkin on biblical ethics. So the fourth edition is coming out again around December or January, and then a book called From Myths to Meaning on Genesis 1 through 11 that I'm co-authoring with Doug Jacoby, coming out with InterVarsity next year, and looking at some of the scientific genre sorts of issues related to the first 11 chapters of Genesis. Did a third edition of True for You But Not for Me, and that should be out sometime in the spring of 2027. And just have done various articles and chapter contributions and so forth, also forthcoming. So I'll keep posting those things at my website as they become available.
When's the one on hell coming out?
Should be December.
That'd be fun to have you back on to talk about that. I actually spoke to Chris Date. I had a debate with him years ago on the topic, so I'd actually love to hear both you and his thoughts on it. Maybe you can get both of y'all on.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, that'd be fine. I mean, we've had conversations with Sean McDowell and Preston Sprinkle and of course Kirk Cameron, in the last couple of months. So
right, because of the recent
good set of conversations.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to keep taking up too much of your time here. We're at 2 hours. Appreciate you. And again, you're always welcome to come back on. Love to.
You're very kind. Thank you. Great to be with you guys. Thanks for the good questions, and appreciate your, the good work you're doing. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
God bless.